Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this DELL Inspiron 5559. So you're going to need a PH1 or J1 screwdriver. And then first thing you're going to want to do is remove the battery. So just slide this tab over, flip the battery out. If you were to put it back, you put the back side in first, and then you just slap it down like that. Okay, so we'll take that out. Alright, after removing the battery, I always recommend to press and hold the power button. Okay, so do that. Just press and hold the power button for about 15 seconds just to drain the power internally. If you're just changing out the RAM or hard drive, you don't need to do this. You just have to make sure your computer's off. But if you're going to take everything apart, then it's always a good idea to do this. And even if you're just doing the RAM or hard drive, you can do it just to be safe. Okay? Okay, once you remove the battery, you're going to want to remove all the screws from the bottom. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one holds the CD drive in place. 8, 9. All right. Once you remove those screws, let me see. Once you remove those 9 screws, then you want to remove the CD drive here. So they actually have a little slot here. Let me see if I can show you that. So they actually have a little slot here that you can use a screwdriver or small tool to kind of push the CD tray out. So I just use that, and then I use that as a handle and pull it out. If you can't get it out that way, what you can do is you can take a needle. Let me show you. I'll actually take the CD drive out and show you here. But let's take this out. So the CD drive has this little hole here on the front. If you use a needle in there, and then you kind of just wiggle it around, the CD drive will pop out. So when you do that, you can actually use the tray. You can pull on this tray to get the CD drive out, okay? But only do that if you can't pop it out using this piece at the top here. Okay, so now we got the CD drive out. There's 3 more screws underneath, so you want to remove those 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now that you got all those screws out, you're going to want to take this bottom panel off. Let me zoom out so you can see that. Oops. Okay, there you go. So we'll pop that out. Just go underneath this little piece, use a pry tool or your fingernails and pull it up. All right, you might have to slide the tool along this edge to unpop the other clips. Same with this side. Okay, then the cover just comes off like that. Alright, so we got an SSD in here, we got the wireless antennas, we got the RAM. So this is a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive. You can put any 2.5-inch SATA hard drive in there you want. So if you wanted to upgrade it or something, you can. Okay. I don't remember if I need to take all of these out. The main thing I need to get to, excuse me, is the charge port. But anyways, his RAM was popping out for some reason. So to take out the RAM, just like every other model, let me show you this. You just pull these 2 metal tabs to the side. It'll pop up at an angle like that, and then you can, pull this out. Okay, so the RAM is PC3 12800S, so that's DDR3 memory. So hopefully you can read that. Okay, so you can upgrade this to whatever you want. You can put 2 8 gig sticks and have 16 gigs if you want, but for most people 8 gigs is more than enough. Okay, so we're gonna put the RAM back in just at an angle like that and then pop that back down. Okay, I don't think I need, well, I guess I'll take it out anyways. Alright, so we're gonna now take out the SSD. Sorry, there's a lot of glare. There's 4 screws holding it in place, and one thing I should have mentioned is you want to keep all the screws in order because they are different sizes, different shapes. So the back 3 where underneath the battery are shorter, and then the CD drive screw and the one, I'll show you in a bit, but let me take out these 4 screws real quick. Alright, so once you get those 4 screws out, you'll want to pop up this little latch here to remove the hard drive cable. So just get underneath, flip it up, and then you can pull this cable out just like that. Okay, once you get that cable out, there's this little tab you can use to pull it up, and then sometimes these metal things get stuck on these raised plastic parts, so you kind of have to help pull it from that side. Okay, just like that, and then you can pull the hard drive out. So you need to transfer this over, as well as this connector for the SATA drive. So to disconnect this little connector from the SATA port, I use my fingernail and kind of pop this out, but sometimes it's tough, so you might have to go from this side, and then you can kind of pry it out just like this. Okay, you can use like a thin pry tool or something, but you don't want to just yank the top out because you can pull off the little cover and damage it. So you don't want to pull from this dark black plastic piece, because that part can get pried off. Okay, so that's how you remove the hard drive or the SSD. Okay, so there's one screw under here. You'll want to remove that as well. Okay, so we'll take that screw out. Let me zoom out again and show you the other screws I was talking about. So if you're doing this, these 3 screws are shorter, and I believe it's the same as actually this one is about the same length, but it's a thinner screw, and then you got another screw here that's also thinner. So keep that in mind if you took out the screws and you're confused where they went. In the future, try and keep them all in order. Okay, so now we got the wireless card here, so I'm going to show you how to remove that. Okay, hopefully I didn't leave my phone charging, because then it's going to overheat. Okay, no, it's off. Alright, so we'll take this little bracket out. So just undo that screw, take the wireless card bracket out. Okay. To remove these antennas, I just go under the tail and pull them up. Sometimes, since this chip is slightly raised, I'll hold the cable up while I push down on the wireless card, and that pops it off. Okay, just like that. Same thing with this one. Hold it up and then push this down. There you go. And then to remove the wireless card, this part is raised, so I'll use that to kind of push it out, and then I'll just grab the chip from here. Okay, just like that. Alright, so that's how you get the wireless card out. Then you got the wireless antennas. You will have to route these out later if you pull off the other parts of the computer. Let's see, so then there's 3 screws towards the bottom. Let me show you these other pieces first. So there's this connector here for, I believe this is for the speakers. I'm going to leave that in there. And then there's the CMOS battery. If you want to take this out, you just push this in with the tool. And then when you push it, because this thing is spring-loaded right here, you can pull up this side after it passes the clips on these edges here. Okay, I'm going to leave that in there. And now we're going to remove the remaining screws from the bottom. Okay, so there's one screw down here. So we're going to remove that screw. There's another screw over here. And there's a screw up here. Okay. I'm trying to keep the screws organized. And then one more screw here. When you open the computer after this, you have to be careful, because the screws that hold the hinges on the corners back here are no longer in place. What you could do is put those 2 screws back in temporarily and then take them out after you remove everything else. So I'll show you that real quick. I think I got everything else out. So I'm going to put these 2 screws back in to help hold the hinge so it doesn't get damaged. Alright, so now we can open the computer. You want to open it slowly and carefully since it doesn't have all the screws holding it in place. Okay, just like this. Alright, now we have to remove the keyboard. So to remove the keyboard, there's little tabs underneath here. So you want to use a thin pry tool. So I use this, okay. And what you do is, let me see if I can show the small little gaps. So here you can see there's like one gap here. There's another one, let's see here, there's another one here, and then there's another one all the way down here, and then same thing down the other side. Okay, so to remove those, you start at the middle, get the tool, put it facing towards the keyboard, then go forward so that it slides underneath the tab, and then you can pull forward. And then after that, you just keep something under there to hold it up. Go to the next tab, do the same thing, and then, oh, sorry, let me zoom out so you can see everything. All right, so you pull that one out, and then same thing on this side. Go towards the keyboard, then towards that way, and then pop it up. Okay, you want to do that on all the sides. All right, once you got that, you want to pull up the center and push down with your palms to pull the sides in. Okay, just like this. And that will allow you to pull the keyboard out. Okay, just like that. And then you want to carefully slide the keyboard forward so that these areas are no longer stuck. And then we want to pull these connectors out. So we got the keyboard backlight connector here. So you just flip up the little latch, okay, just like that, and then you can pull the connector out. Same thing with the keyboard, flip up the latch. All right, and then you can pull this keyboard out. You kind of have to lift it up as well because this one has wings that get caught. All right, so that's how you remove the keyboard. Then we want to disconnect all the other cables that are under here. Okay, let me show you here. So this is the CD or optical drive connector. This one, when you put it back, you have to thread it back through this hole, so keep that in mind. Okay, just flip up the tab like the other ones. Then I think this is the trackpad connector, same thing, flip up the little tab, and then you can pull the connector out. Okay, and then you got this one up here is the power button, I believe, so move that as well, and pull that out. Okay, you want to be careful with these cables, they are fragile, so don't flex them and bend them too much. Okay, then you got a bunch of screws underneath here as well. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you got to remove all 6 of those as well. All right. Again, keep all the screws in order because they are different sizes and shapes. You don't want to get them all mixed up. Alright, so that should be all the screws. Now we're going to want to remove the screws that we put back in. The nice way to do this is you hang the computer off your desk, so you have the screen hanging off your desk. You can't really see it, but let me show you, zoom out a little bit. There you go, just like that. And then you remove those screws, okay? Okay, just like that. All right, so now that you got all those screws removed, flip the computer back over. Actually, I missed one here. There's one more screw up here next to the RAM. So make sure you remove that as well. Okay, so make sure. All right, I think that's all the screws now. Let me double check. Yep. Okay, that's all the screws. So we flip the computer back over. And then we want to pop this thing out. So let's see if I can show this. It's gonna be tough. There's actually a missing piece of plastic here, I just noticed. Okay, so I'm gonna have the computer up this way so you can kind of see, but let's see which side pops up. Okay, so it pops up from the bottom, not from up here. It pops out from this black panel on the bottom. So you want to have the computer facing this way, and then on this side between the silver and the base, that's where you got to pop it out. So I just get my fingernails under and I push with my thumb to pry the two parts away. Okay, just like that. Might have to zoom out. Okay, just like this. Again, you have to be careful because the optical disk drive connector is under there. It's threaded through. Okay, so you have to be careful with this cable. All right, so separate the layers. Okay. Just go all the way around. pretty sure that's all the screws, right? Yeah, looks like it. Okay, so now I'm gonna put it up this way so I have a little bit better grip. So the hardest part is removing these two sides. I don't know why, but the clips there are very strong. So just keep that in mind. And you do have to move the wires for the antennas out of the way. Okay. If you want, you can put them underneath so you don't accidentally get them caught on something later. And then you kind of just wiggle this around. Okay. Again, this is going to be a little difficult to remove. Just go around. Let's see if there we go. So I pushed the case in this way while I lifted from this side. Okay. And there we go. We got this out. Oh, we do have to actually remove the speaker connector. Again, be careful with the CD drive connector. It does have to thread through. Okay, so we have to remove this connector down here. Let me see if I can show you a close-up of that, or at least a little bit closer. So to grab that, it's a little tough, but usually I use my fingernails and I just wiggle the connector. Just keep wiggling it and it pops out, okay? You don't want to just yank it straight back because that can rip out this connector from the board. Okay, so now we got that. Again, we pull this up and be careful because the CD drive connector, again, is underneath. So here you can see this is the connector I was talking about. It threads through the hole here. I think it's this one. Let me double check. So, oh, I didn't even capture that on video. So it threads through. Oh, there's lots of broken plastic bits in here. Yeah, so it threads through this small hole here, okay? Okay, so this one, the hinge looks like it's actually breaking, so I'm gonna see if I can support it a bit. I think it's actually just the case is flimsy, so let me check if the screws are tight. Oops, let me zoom back out. So right now I'm just checking the hinge screws to see if they're tight. They are pretty tight, so it's not because those are loose, it's just because this case is a bad design. It's very weak, as you can see. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's flexing a lot. I'm gonna add some red thread locker just to be safe, to help strengthen the screws at least. Hopefully the screw mounts aren't broken. Okay, so we're gonna add some thread locker. Put the screws back in. Okay. Yeah, so this design is actually not very good. It's very flimsy on the hinge side, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people have broken hinges on this model. But yeah, okay. And usually when you break it, it's not the hinge, it's the plastic shell, and that's this top panel that you'd have to replace to fix it. Usually I'll use like a strong epoxy like JB Weld to reform all the mounts to kind of just hold the metal piece in place, but depending how it broke, you're probably gonna have to replace the whole palm rest assembly. Okay, so we'll do the last screw with the red Loctite or thread locker. Okay, that should prevent the screws from coming loose and causing damage. So they were having problems with the charge port, so this is why. Let me see if I can show you. I'm going to actually close the thing. So if you attempt to close this, you want to hold down the hinge on both sides and then push the screen with the surface that you're working on, because you don't want to put too much stress on the screw mounts, okay? Alright, so let's show you this here. So the charge port is, the problem is they just mount it in place with this little plastic tab. So here you can see this thing actually broke off and now the charge port is moving around. So what you got to do is this screw, you might have to remove it. Let's see here. Because the plastic piece underneath, so this plastic tab, that I took out is supposed to hold this charge port or the DC jack in place, but it always breaks, so I don't know, it's a very bad design. So I'm going to put the screw back in place, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use hot glue and fill this, and fill the gap behind it, so that way when you plug it in, it won't be able to push the charge port in into the computer. So let me make sure this charge port's working. I'm going to plug it in real quick, see if it gets charged to the computer. I don't know if it's going to do anything right now because I disconnected all the stuff, so this kind of sucks. It's going to be difficult to check and make sure it's working. Okay, and the charge port connector, I believe, is underneath the motherboard, so if you need to replace this, oh, actually, it might just be underneath, no. Oh yeah, it's underneath this connector here. So let's take this out and then I'll show you. So this connector has a little latch, and it also has this kind of connector that you have to pop up. So I just get my fingernail or pry tool underneath and pop that out. And here you can see the charge port. Oh yeah, it connects all the way underneath here. So you do have to take the whole motherboard out just to replace the charge port, which is a stupid design. So let's see here. I'm going to put this connector back in. Okay. Usually I have my head over the top of the board so I can see what I'm doing. So this is a little bit tricky to put back without blocking the view of the camera. But there we go. Alright, you also got the fan here, which to remove you do have to take the heat sink out or the whole motherboard. You can remove these tiny screws from it, and then you can pull the fan out. There's also a little clip here that you have to bend up. Okay, so let's see about plugging this in. Oh, let me also plug in my hot glue gun since I'm going to need that. Okay. So the hot glue will take a while to heat up. Let me see if I can plug this in and check the charge state. It looks like the connectors are in place, so hopefully... Okay, yeah, I can actually see the charge light. Oops, let me show you here. So the charge light is down here. So if I unplug this and plug it back in, so this light, there you go. I don't know if you saw that, but the charge light does come on. So that means the charge port is working okay. And the only problem is when they plugged it in without anything supporting the back of it. I'll show you what I mean. So if you look here, if I plug this in without anything holding it, as you can see, the charge port's just going into the computer. So it needs something to hold it solid in here, and that way it can plug properly. Okay, so I'm going to hold this here, and then what I'm going to have to do is add the hot glue behind it. So I'm going to unplug the laptop charger and use this to keep the charger in place. Okay. And let me go grab another hot glue stick because I'm running out of hot glue. Okay, I'll be back. I'm going to pause the video. Alright, so I'm back. Hopefully the hot glue is warm enough now. Let's see here. So I got this, and basically I'm just going to fill the gap behind here with hot glue. Okay, I like to use hot glue because it's not very strong. So if anything, if I need to take it out, I can basically just rip the hot glue out and it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, and also, I don't know 100% because I haven't tested, but I believe that it doesn't conduct electricity. I haven't done any tests with it. I can probably do that. Let me try this real quick. I'm going to wait till this hardens. So I'm actually going to do a test real quick to see if the hot glue conducts electricity. But for now, let's have this hold in place. I haven't ever put the hot glue on electronic components like the actual parts that conduct electricity, so I haven't had any issues with it. But I'm going to do a test now and confirm. Okay, so that thing's going to be super hot, so you don't want to touch it. So the way I'm going to test it is we have like the hot glue stick here. So basically once the hot glue is cooled, it'll be that. What I'm going to do is take this voltmeter and switch it to resistance. So that way I can measure. Oh, the battery's low on this. I don't know if it's going to work right. So if you touch these two together, oh yeah, this one's too dead. Let me go grab another one. I will be back. Alright, so I got another voltmeter. So let me show you what I mean. Oops, I left the hot glue on. So let me zoom out here a little bit. Alright, so we got the voltmeter. It's set to resistance or ohms. Okay, so if I touch these two together, here you can see it shows connection. So if I were to go on my desk and do this, here you can see it doesn't conduct electricity. Okay, if I go on the hinge, hopefully you can see, but here you can see the hinge conducts electricity. So if I touch this here, see, even if I'm like super close together, nothing happens. So the hot glue doesn't conduct electricity, so it's a good thing to use inside the computer. It won't have any issues with anything. So I'll also touch the part in here. As you can see, no conduction at all. If I touch here, now you can see it's actually setting it off. All right, so hot glue is good for putting inside that I won't have any issues. So now what I'm going to do, oops. Okay, this thing's still moving around a bit, so I'm going to add a little more. Okay. So usually I don't like sticking it to the board, even though it won't cause any issues. But yeah, so we're going to just put the glue all around, and then I'll put a little up here to where the plastic is, just to hold that together. Okay, but the main thing is when you fill this gap here, when you put the cover back on, it's going to keep it from getting pushed back inside the case, and that's the main thing that you want. Okay, so let me put this away now. Okay, accidentally spilled some glue on the floor. The only thing I don't like is it makes all these like spider web stuff. Alright. Okay, so we'll set that aside. Usually once it's kind of cooled, I like to push it down. Right now it's way too hot, so I don't want to touch it yet, but we'll wait for it to cool a bit, and then I'll show you what I mean. Okay. Alright, hold on. I'll be back, so that way you don't have to watch nothing. Alright, so I'm back. Now I'm just going to push this down to make sure it stays in place. Okay, and then here you can see that now it's a solid fit. So basically we're just going to put everything back together. It looks like they did have like a liquid spill at some point. There's like liquid residue all over the bottom of this keyboard. But yeah, we're going to put it back together now. Again, you want to be careful when opening and closing this because the hinges are pretty weak. Okay, so let's see here. So you do have to lift the case up slightly because you will have to thread the optical drive connector through. So I'm just holding it up slightly. All right, and then I'm gonna be threading, I don't know if I can show this. Let me kind of raise it up and try and show this. But you got the optical drive connector in here. So you want to thread it through that hole there, okay? So thread that through. All right, make sure it's not getting caught on anything. And then you also want to thread the wireless antennas out because they are caught underneath as well. So make sure you grab the wireless antennas out from under there. Okay, let me zoom back in. All right, so make sure you grab the wireless antennas and guide them back out to where they used to be. Okay, so into that slot there. All right, so now we can close this, and then you can also reconnect the speaker antenna or speaker connector there. So just line it up and push that back in. Okay, just like that. All right, so now that we got everything in, let me zoom back out, and then we will begin the reassembly process. So pop all these connectors back down. All right, this side might be a little tight. I put a little extra glue to keep it from moving around. Okay, so we're gonna put the screws back. We'll do the hinge screws first, so the one up here in this corner. Okay, and then the other hinge screw on this corner. Okay. If you disconnected any other connectors internally, you might want to double check that before you start snapping everything back down. I'm actually going to add the thread locker to these screws. Okay, because these two are the hinge screws, and I want to make sure that they don't come loose. Okay, let's take that screw out. Add a little thread locker to that. Tighten it up. So you don't have to add thread locker, but it helps a lot because sometimes these screws will come loose and then the hinges will break if you don't. So it's a good idea to do it. All right, here we go. Okay. And thread locker is basically like a wax that it kind of coats it. Okay, there we go. So now we got those screws in. I'm gonna put the CD drive tray back in first, just because those screws are underneath stuff and I don't want to forget them. So we'll put these three first. Okay, just like this. All right, so now we got those three screws in. We can slide the CD tray back. Sometimes you might have to flip the computer over if the CD tray won't go in, but if it goes in like that, it's fine. Sometimes you might have to flip the computer over and push it in, because depending how the gravity is pulling on this bracket, it might get caught on something. Okay, so we got that. We're gonna put the keyboard and stuff back in the top. So open it slowly just to be safe. All right, if you did it right, then you got the connector for the optical drive up here. So we are going to slot that back in. Let me zoom in for you to see. Okay, just like this. Line it up. You do have to kind of insert it at an angle because the little wings will get caught on the parts that stick out. Just like that. All right, and then flop that back down. Got the connector up there, so we got to reconnect that as well. Same thing, line it up. All right, sometimes it helps if you can pinch and grab the blue part of the connector, but this one it's like short, so it's kind of difficult to do. So I kind of do from back there. All right, there we go. Get that in, plop that down, and then this connector as well. All right, line it up. You kind of have to lift the connector up and then just push the blue part down. So this, normally I have my head looking over from the top to get a better view, but it's difficult to do that while I'm recording because the cameras won't be able to see if I do that. So there we go. Come on. Just gotta line it up properly. There we go. So once you got it in, plop that down. Then we gotta put all the screws back in here. Okay, so we got the two screws here. Put those back in. All right. Just like that. Then we got the other four screws over here. Okay, so we're gonna put those four back in. Just like that. Okay, now that we got all those screws in, make sure the clips are in place, and we're gonna put back the keyboard now. So let me see if I can show that. I might have to zoom in, but basically what you do, the bottom has these little parts that stick out. So you want to, well, I guess we'll do the connectors first. So let me zoom in and show you that. Okay, so reconnect the keyboard first. Make sure the little latch is up. Okay, just line it up, make sure it's in all the way, and then push that latch down. Then you got the keyboard backlight connector as well. Same thing, grab the little extended part, slot it in, use that to kind of help you hold that in place. All right, and then push that down. There you go. And then to put the keyboard back in, let's zoom back out. Okay, so at the base, again, it has these little notches. You want to put that in first at an angle. And then just like before, you hold the middle up and push the sides down first. All right, just like that. Same thing on this side. And then you go all along and lock everything in. All right, so now we close this up. Flip it back over. And we can go ahead and put back the rest of the screws. So don't forget there's one screw right here. So grab that. Let's see here. Did I get all of the, yeah. Okay, don't forget that screw here that goes between the screws of the hard drive adapter. All right, then let's put back these bottom screws. So there's one here in this corner. All right, then you got another one down here. One in. And you got the one that's slightly above it to the right. Okay. Then you got the other screw all the way on the other bottom corner. All right, so once you got all of that, there's one up here that we removed last that I forgot. So make sure you get that as well. Okay, there we go. Now we'll put the SSD back in place. So connect the hard drive connector first. Let's see, let me zoom in so you can actually see that better. Okay, so the hard drive connector, to put it back in, I use the hard drive, I just hold it there, and then I kind of just slide it back in. All right, once it's lined up, you can put the little latch down, and then you can put the hard drive down and put the screws in place. Okay, just like this. If you want, you can put the screws loosely first to make sure, because this tab, as I was saying, it sometimes doesn't go in right. So once you get those two sides in properly, this one, and then tighten this one up completely, now you can go and do the other two. Okay, just like this. Okay, so now we got all of those in. Now we want to put the wireless card back. So the wireless card on this model is a little bit tricky because this plastic extends out a tiny bit. So you do have to slide it underneath there first and then push the wireless card in. Okay, just like this. And then I push on the card. There we go. All right, so we got the white and black wireless antennas. So they actually have it marked. There's a black triangle for the black cable and a white triangle for the white triangle. So just put the wireless antennas back in. Let me zoom in so you can see, because these connectors are usually a little tricky to put back. So to put that back, you just make sure line it up completely. All right, I usually will rub my fingernail over the top. If it stays in place, you know it's on properly, and then just push it down. Okay, same thing with the other one. That, all right, push it down. Okay, so now we just gotta make sure these wires are staying flat. Then we get the bracket, put the bracket on top. All right, get the screw. Okay, and then put the screw in, just like that. Make sure you hold the bracket down so it stays in place. And go. Okay, so there we go. We got the wireless card back in. All that's left is to replace the bottom cover and the rest of the screws, and we're good to go. So let's do that right now. Okay. So the bottom cover just goes on like this. Make sure you put the bottom half in first with those little clips or tabs, and then push down the sides and then go across the top just like that. Okay, so now got to put all the rest of the screws back in. Put in those two for the cover. Okay, now that you got those two screws in, you just want to put in the rest. So we got, let's see here, we got the one CD drive screw here. I already put in the 2 hinge screws earlier. Okay, then you got the other screw here for the CD drive. I think that also holds it in place. And then the 3 screws that were underneath the battery. Okay. Okay, so now we got all of those screws in. I'm gonna put the battery in. Again, you want to put it in with the bottom or the back first, and then you just slide it down like that. All right, so final test, plug it in, make sure the battery is charging. So the battery light is right here, so let's plug it in. Oops, I forgot I left it unplugged from the wall. Let me plug that in first. Okay, I was wondering, I was like, nothing's happening. Okay, so I'll put that back up. All right, so here's the light. Plug it in. There you go. It's on, blinked. Is it gonna charge? Okay, so the light is staying on now. That means it's charging the battery. So there you go. Hopefully this video helped you. If it did, please like and subscribe because that'll help others find this video. It'll also help me. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.